Don't do Welcome to Deep Tracks
only by Walrus Audio.
Because I feel like the welcome is implied. If you've clicked play.
Yeah. There's some people that click on things and they have no idea what they just clicked on.
What's a good example of that?
So many.
Like when.
Yeah, what is a good example?
Yeah, like when family members get robbed on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example.
That is a good example.
And I'm like, why did you read the verification code to that person that they sent to your
You have to email
account.
My aunt, though, and here's her email address. You have, for this purchase of a boat.
I did just inherit $100 million from some guy that told me I'm an heir. And so I did give him my bank account because it's like $100 million.
Yeah, you got to get that in there.
Dude, if I had $100 million, you know what I'd do? I'd spend it on something.
I'd like vacation forever.
Vacation? You would die. Your soul would die.
That would be awful.
You would be so sad. Yeah. More money, more problems. You know what I mean? Like we spend our lives trying to acquire, and then once we acquire, we're trying to fire.
The more problems we see.
That is not the beat to that song.
Is that Top Gun?
No, it's the Cisco hold music.
Oh, it is.
You know, there's a whole. I think it's either Radiolab or This American Life that did a whole 30-minute episode on that song, and the guy that wrote it, and it was like a side project of his, and I think Cisco needed hold music, and so he just like uploaded it, one of his side projects, and then
he worked there, and he just. I
don't think he makes any money from it, but it's like one of the most played songs over the Virgo cluster. I mean, I'm pretty sure all the planets are using on Cisco systems now.
It works. I mean, it's
Yeah, I just had an artist come through named Andy Squires, and he stayed at my house. With him and his family, they're on tour, and what a delightful gentleman he is.
That's random. I love that.
Where
did that come from?
Well, it comes from what I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
And so, great guy, love him. Go type it in, and good luck trying to spell Squires right the first time. You're not going to. But he writes tour diaries on Instagram, like what's going on tour, and he's pretty funny. He's a lot like me, like he's hilarious. And then so he writes these tour diaries, and in one of the most recent tour diaries, post Oklahoma City, he talked about in Texas, the people that he stayed with in Texas have seen in the neighborhood around a Jaguarundi. What's
a Jaguarundi?
Well, so it's like a small.
I thought that was a setup for a joke.
No, it's not. It's like a small. You should Google image it, and if you're driving right now, listening to it, for sure Google image it on your phone, and then look it up. But
and spell it right.
Yeah, it's Jaguarundi.
Oh.
And so I read this on his tour diary, and I started going down a big black hole on the Jaguarundi. So it's compared to like a puma or.
That's cute.
So cute wouldn't be the first word that came out of my mouth.
The first. Look at this. That one's cute.
That's a child. That is a cute child.
But this one,
Jaguarundi.
this one is terrifying.
Yeah, look at the eyes of this. Look at this guy, this Jaguarundi. Look at that.
Yeah,
that is a scary cat. So, but he says that the neighbors say that it's friendly or something like that. But I think they're only found in Mexico. So I was just...
How big are these things?
See, and I can't really tell by these photos. So let's just decide how big they are for the podcast. Like,
we can't figure this out.
I think it's the size of this blue couch that you're sitting on. I would say it's the size of a minivan.
Dude, you're probably right.
So that would be larger than a lion. Just full disclosure. Which is the largest cat. Isn't the lion the largest cat, isn't it? In the cat family?
I couldn't tell you.
It is. Let's just say it is. Because it has to be. What larger, do you know of a larger cat than a lion?
I feel like there's probably something in...
you go to
polar bears are the biggest bears, right? So I feel like there's probably a big cat.
No, grizzlies are the biggest bears.
Bigger than a polar bear?
Pretty sure. Why don't you look that up? I think it goes grizzly, Kodiak, polar bear.
It's polar bear.
Black bear.
Oh, like way bigger.
Oh my gosh, that is such a big bear. You're right.
It's humongous.
I mean, it looks small.
They're bigger than
it looks
houses.
small on your phone. It looks really small on your phone, though.
Look at that thing.
Dude,
Goodness.
that is
Everybody can see that.
Yeah, if you're listening, we're looking up images of polar bears next to humans, and they are so big.
Oh, wait. While the polar bear is the largest of the bear species, the Kodiak bear holds the title of the largest land predator. That is because the polar bear is technically classified as a marine mammal. Wow.
So
you're
polar
right,
bears,
and I'm right.
Polar bears are fish.
Dude, I would hate to swim with a polar bear.
Polar bear fish is such a good band name. Oh my gosh, that should have been mine for today.
Polar bear fish.
Polar bear fish. I'd like to kind of go back on all these episodes, and how many times do we end up talking about animals?
We do a lot. Animals are fascinating.
The animal kingdom, like, what other kingdom is more fascinating than the animal kingdom? I've got a Cooper's hawk in my backyard right now, a family of Cooper's hawks, and they have 2 babies in a nest high up. And so it is really fun because they're very territorial, right? Oh. So the space 15 feet above us humans, I mean, it just doesn't belong to us. It is bird land. And there's
do they dive bomb?
There's there's front yards, backyards, territory. They have their yard in their mind.
Oh man.
And anybody who gets in their space, especially when they have younglings, gets in trouble. So there's been a lot of bird fights in my backyard recently.
Oh, you're talking about they getting fights with other birds. But do they ever attack you or your kids?
No. They stay pretty chill. But I actually haven't thought about that until you said that.
Well, there was a hole.
This is a large bird. I'm talking. It's like when it's standing, like tail to head. I mean, it's like 2 feet long, 18 feet, 2 feet long. It's a big bird.
I remember playing disc golf, and there was
Big Bird
one hole
from Sesame Street is a fish. Also,
he's a fish. Big bird fish.
One of the rare bird fishes. Go for it.
I used to play disc golf, and there's a hole that had a hawk. And you throw that thing, and it's going to dive bomb. Not just your disc, but you. It's terrifying.
Yeah. That
so
is
don't think about that.
It is really scary to be dive bombed at by a bird.
With a beak. It's just an arrow.
The beak they travel fast, and the beak is very sharp. Yeah. Dude, stuff that's supposed to be sharp on animals is very sharp. Like cat claws, teeth, because they're like gnawing on rocks to keep that stuff sharp. Like they are taking care of themselves. Yeah. And we're just lucky to not die.
Here's a question my kid asked the other day because he's obsessed with peregrine falcons because they're the fastest.
I have
animal.
a peregrine falcon story.
He wanted to know if a peregrine falcon was going full speed right at you, would it go through you? And you can't Google that question and get an answer.
Yeah, you can't. Sure. It depends on which part of you it would be going through. And I think in dive bomb mode,
like 220, 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, 30 miles an hour. I think, if it was going through the gut, I think it would go right through you.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a hard beak moving at 230 miles per hour, probably 4 or 5 pounds,
Yeah.
Of just, I think it would go through you.
The other question was...
Rib cage, head, I don't think it... I think it would... Yeah, it'd have a tough time.
Knee bone.
Both would also die. Like, the bird would die and you would die, too.
If it hit, like, a double-pane glass window, this is another question is, would it explode and shatter, or would it break through and still be intact on the other side? I mean, birds are so light.
Depends on the glass manufacturer, I think.
Yeah.
Is this
bulletproof glass?
Is this pellet glass or what is it? Yeah. Is this or micro bulletproof glass? I was in Big Bend National Park, and there's a section called the Southern Rim, and you hike the trail, you go there, and then it's this beautiful top of this cliff, and then it overlooks into Mexico, and it is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. Just the whole park in general, Big Bend National Park, which I think we talked about in the Slow Joy episode.
I think we've talked about it
this is the second time it's come up.
Yeah.
But it was closed because it was peregrine falcon mating season.
Oh.
And we decided to go past the sign anyway. And we're like, screw it. Like, I'm here. I drove all this way. It's a very remote park. You have to drive a very long way to get to this park. I drove all the way here. I'm going to go see the Southern Rim. So we go there, and it was a mistake. I mean, I had never been so scared. I mean, they are dive bombing. They are territorial. They're like, I think they're dive bombing me and missing me on purpose to warn us.
You could have given us the answer to this question.
So, but they're not doing the 200. They're like going up 2 feet and like brushing your pack or hitting your your side.
They're hitting you.
They're just trying to get you to leave.
You.
It's scary. I was scared. And so I took a couple pictures and then I got out of there because it was.
That is terrifying.
It was really terrifying.
That's things you don't think about when you're stranded out in the middle of the forest, you know?
Okay. So my band name today, they're on tour with, dang it, they're on tour with somebody I've already said that somebody else is on tour with. So let me pick who they're on tour with real quick.
You want me to go?
Yeah, I do want you to go.
Okay. My band today is Loom.
That's a good band name.
It is, isn't it? L-U with the dash above it, M. Loom.
And thanks for listening to the show. That's
great,
it, everybody.
Yeah, it's real good, huh?
Dead air, you're dead.
They're
That was
from
too
Olympia,
much dead air.
Olympia, Washington. Any beautiful places up there?
Olympia, Washington?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like Olympic National Park.
I was just joking.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was gonna go to another national park.
Yeah.
They're grunge, kind of like Deftones.
Okay.
And they're out.
What's up?
Nothing. You go. You go.
My band name today is War for Sport. Doesn't that sound heavy?
That does.
Yeah.
War
It
for
also
Sport.
sounds a little too real.
Yeah, because that's the thing.
War for Sport is on tour with Franz Ferdinand, so it's definitely like a post-punk, Interpol kind of sound.
Okay. War for Sport. That has to be a band name.
Speaking of War for Sport, we've got Stu G on the show today, and he hails from Ipswich, but now is based in Nashville, and he's a guitar player that I've been listening to. Not my whole life, but a large part of it, and has been really influential for a lot of people. He also he is a tone smith. So back in the day, we used to have blacksmiths, but now we've got tone smiths. And he is a tone smith in a way where he is creating like IRs and like all this kind of stuff for Tone Junkie, Kemper amps, like Iridium maybe, Helix settings, ACS1. And while also doing a large part of songwriting. And I mean, the dude is just really busy.
He is very active.
But he doesn't look busy. Like, he looks very relaxed.
He does.
And very charming, very present. But I can't imagine what's on his plate with all the stuff he's got going on. So, man. But let's let him talk about it. So let's bring him on. Without further ado, Stu G. Well, hey, welcome everybody. Today we've got Stu G, and he's first going to tell us about how he came about that name, because only the greatest guitarists have icon names, right?
That's true.
So we've got Slash, we've got The Edge, and we've got Stu G. And
I bet I can figure it out.
And then you go into, you kind of branch out from guitar into other instrumentalists. So you've got Flea, What other instrumentalists have nicknames that everybody's okay with?
You named the big ones.
Did I name the big one? Did I do a good job? Was I thorough?
You were thorough.
Okay, good. That's all I wanted to hear.
I bet there's some more.
SZA. That's just her name.
Okay, yeah. That's well, if you go into pop stars, I mean, we could talk all day long. Okay, so profile yourself for us, for someone who might not know who you are or what you're doing. What in the world are you doing, and why are you on this podcast today?
The last question, because you invited me, and I.
Yeah. No, I did. He wanted to lay the ground rules out. I just want to be sure. You know what I mean?
But so Stu G. So I most people would know me from my time in a band called Delirious. So we had that was in the UK. I used to live there, and we had a 17-year run with Delirious, and we so that it was kind of like a rock band. Well, actually, so Delirious with a question mark, right? So people would say, "Are you a rock band or a worship band?" And like, well, the answer was yes, but we used to keep it, a little bit mysterious with the question mark, because
Sure.
in the UK there's not a huge kind of Christian music business. So if we wanted to like be a band for a living or full time, like our music had to live in the space where everything else lived, which was on the high street, and HMV and Virgin Record stores and what have you. So, and on the radio, and so we used to release singles into the charts, and as well as playing churches and stuff and festivals, we toured with Bon Jovi. We played Glastonbury Festival. We had a number 2 in on the radio in Germany.
Did you say Delirious toured with Bon Jovi?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
2001, and we did a stadium tour of the UK.
That's amazing.
That's so great. I did not know that. I did not know that. Did you get to do a thing where they brought the opening band out to help shred on "Living on a Prayer"?
I wish. No, they didn't. Like we did.
Like where everybody gets in the mic and goes, "Whoa!" They didn't do that.
Yeah. So we got a couple of stories though. One is so we got to meet them once.
Mm-hmm.
We spent the whole tour thinking, oh no, there'll be an after.
That's
show
how those
party
tours
or
go. That's
something.
what I hear. Okay.
And we got to meet them once, and we'd just finished our set, and we kind of were walked into their dressing room, and it was very, very nice. Very
Sure.
Everything was they were very kind and very friendly, and what have you. And but as we were leaving, they said, "Oh, have a great show," and we'd already played.
They also lived with earplugs in.
The other story about that was
It's
that,
so funny. I'm still laughing about that.
one of the shows was on the day of Martin. So Martin Smith was the lead singer of Delirious, and he's got a sister, and she was getting married on one of the show days with Bon Jovi, and one of the things was, we'll do these shows if we can make this wedding and like fly to the gig. Yeah. So we, our management booked a helicopter to take us from the South Coast to Milton Keynes. It was going to be our Queen live at Milton Keynes moment, where we fly into the Milton Keynes Bowl on a helicopter,
Which is just north of London, isn't it?
It's kind of in
minutes?
the Midlands a little bit.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's probably like an hour or so north of London. Anyway, so we get in this helicopter, and we're kind of early, right? So he's like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to land here, and we're going to refuel, and so that we don't have to do that on the way back.
Okay.
So we land at this airfield.
I'm already stressed.
And we refuel, and the helicopter won't start again.
Oh my gosh.
No.
So basically we have a helicopter that has failed, and but thankfully we were on the ground.
Yeah.
But we still had to get to the gig. So our road manager, who's a legend, a guy called Ian Cattle, one of the best people you could ever wish to know. Anyway, we basically had a police escort from the airfield to the gig, where they were like, we were in a white police van, which is basically what they use to kind of take away hooligans from football matches.
Wow.
Right?
And
So
how
we
long
were-
was that
'cause-
drive?
Oh, I don't know, 30 minutes or so. I don't know.
You're
Something like
so
that.
cool.
So we had,
Oh
so
my
we were in
gosh.
there. And the reason they put us in that van was because we had to get changed, because we knew that we were going to have to get there and walk straight on stage, right? So,
Oh wow.
but the to get there and beat all the traffic lights and all the roundabouts and all the traffic, we had to have like this escort, this police escort. So there was like Police on motorbikes going in front and behind,
Oh my
stopping
gosh.
traffic.
Wow.
You know, it was like we were the president of America or something.
That's amazing.
The police on motorbikes were going ahead and behind, and they were stopping the traffic and letting us go through. And we arrived at the Milton Keynes Bowl behind stage, a little bit stressed, but we walked straight out onto the stage and did the show.
No line checking or anything. I mean,
No,
just,
nothing.
I
No-
mean, was
no
it
line
your
check, no
was it
nothing.
your gear that was already set up?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's
yeah.
still some familiarity.
The crew were already there.
But, oh my gosh, whose wedding was this?
This was Martin's sister.
Okay, sister.
Yeah.
Gotcha. A child, that might not be appropriate, but listen, a sister, totally. Hey, I'm dropping in, I'm leaving. You know?
A child.
If you can't like just leave your child's wedding.
Oh,
No, that's right.
Okay.
So we were in that band, and we traveled the world doing all that kind of stuff. But why am I called Stu G? Is because there were two Stews in the band,
Oh,
and Stu Smith and Stu Gerard, and G was just easier, and it's easier than saying my last name, to be honest.
yeah.
So
It's easy
and
for
it was
us.
kind of cool. I mean, was it inspired by the Spice Girls? Probably.
You got to, yeah.
Mel C, Mel B, Stu G, Stu Smee.
There you go.
Yeah.
Stu Smee.
Oh, so okay, so I think we are more familiar with the Spice Girls as Baby Spice, Scary Spice, Posh, Sporty Spice, like the whole thing.
Keep going.
I
Scary
can't do-
Spice.
I said
Did you-
Scary
you
Spice,
did? Okay.
Scary Spice, Baby Spice, Sporty Spice, Posh, and
The
Ginger.
Ginger. Yeah.
Thank you. Which was
Yeah.
my favorite. I was a
Yeah.
Ginger fan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Sporty
Me too.
Spice was Melanie, and Scary Spice was also Melanie. So there was Mel B and Mel C.
Okay.
There's a lot of different opinions about this, and everybody's got a different take. But why do you think, just in general, this is a big macro question, why do you think the UK is just such a hotbed for pop music globally?
I don't know.
I wish that you did.
We lost the empire, and so
I know.
So maybe it's I don't know, little country syndrome or something.
Maybe.
Wishing for something more,
Maybe that's
trying a
it.
bit harder.
Maybe.
No, I think partly it's that the English language is all around the world, right? So that's a head start.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like what you said earlier. It's really similar to what happened in Japan after World War II. Because in some of the peace treaties that they were forced to sign was that they couldn't develop any any aircraft or any like combat aircraft, things like that. So all these engineers went into automotive, designing automotives, and so from that that's why you've got like Toyota and Nissan and Honda and these like huge like very high quality like automotive manufacturers, because all these brains went from aerospace engineering and went into the automotive industry because they weren't allowed to do aircraft for a certain amount of decades. I can't remember, but maybe that's the same thing. Maybe that's what happened in the
maybe.
UK with rock and roll and pop music, things like that. Okay,
That's
so
great.
Delirious is a really interesting band because like the bands that I'm talking about, there was a lot of intentionality about like appropriate and digestible creativity. I think in the writing process for Delirious, where is like, I think kind of in the Christian gospel music genre, a lot of it starts with a song, and then sometimes people just kind of, it's like kind of what happens in Nashville with most things. It's like there's a good song, and then they put some awesome instrumentalists to it, and then all of a sudden you've got this really beautiful sounding, smooth song, which is not the way of Delirious, I mean, you even listen to the live records, you listen to some of the studio records. There's a lot of creativity. What was the writing process like, and who was driving a lot of that vision, or was it like collective vision, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so there was a collective vision in that what made Delirious as a band was the fact that there was 5 different people. Um, in terms of the creative, like writing aspect, that was mainly Martin and I. And really, it kind of came from we were just trying to make music that we enjoyed, honestly.
Yeah.
We weren't trying to fit into someone else's idea of what we should be doing. So, like right from the early days, we started to make at the very beginning. Martin was writing a bunch of songs, and we'd make like these 5-song cassette tapes, little EPs, and sell them at the back of the hall. And little did we know that actually what we were doing was starting a record label.
Yeah, nice.
Because when people approached us to say, "Oh, why don't you sign with us?" and like we can help you make a CD, or whatever.
CD.
But we figured out that okay, so we've done this so far with all these cassettes, or whatever, and we can make, I don't know what it was, £3 off a cassette or something or more.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone else did it, we'd be making like 92 pence.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was as simple as that, really. We just kind of kept everything under our own control, and in that way, we started our own record label. We eventually had our own publishing and our own distribution, as well as the band. Every step along the way, it was like we don't have to, do what everyone else is doing. We don't have to listen and be told to do something we don't want to do.
Yeah.
So like there's some good things about that. I would say it's mostly positive, but then you've got some. Could it have been better if we'd have had a Brian Eno or someone
Sure.
alongside us? Because we were basically self-producing most of the time, and had amazing people that helped us. So like for the first couple of records, Andy Pierce, he used to be in a band called After the Fire. He was like helping us produce, and then we was really self-producing, but then our A&R guy from EMI here in America, Lynn Nichols, he really got involved with us too, and like we would always be working with producer engineers, but also be co-producing it ourselves.
Yeah.
So like we were very much in control of what we did, and so like we were listening to all the things that were inspiring us, whether that was U2 or Radiohead or whoever it was, and trying to write songs that that kind of showed that inspiration, whether we did or not, I don't know. Like there's some good stuff in our catalog, and there's some not so good stuff, and what have you. But
Sure.
every band's like that.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
we did have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Along the way.
So I've got a question. You said you kind of did it your way. We're not going to please people. We're gonna kind of keep a lot of control. So what does a band gain from that, and then what do you sacrifice? I'm sure there's like gains and there's sacrifices. If you had to like list them out, what would those be?
Yeah.
And pretend like you're talking to people that are kind of on the cusp of maybe deciding those kinds of things.
Yeah. The gains are things like the satisfaction of knowing that you're not compromising. So it's stuff like that you're really making it for yourselves first, or you know, like in terms of like the Christian gospel context, it's like, okay, so what's my expression to
Yeah.
God? You know, it's
Uh-huh.
like you're really kind of not compromising that.
Yeah.
The things that are cons are stuff like, well, perhaps, you know, so for instance, we made a decision, like we were all married,
Mhm.
and at first, Karen and I were the only ones that had children. You know, we're the oldest in that group, but you know, along the way, children come along, and it's like, okay, so we don't want to be away longer than 10 days.
Mhm.
So we would do this we'd tour the world and do, you know, I don't know, 100 shows a year or something, and not be away most of the time for longer than 10 days. Sometimes that would get stretched for, you know, 2 weeks or something, but very rarely.
Sure.
And so we had this. So when I say the cons on that are that, you know, we were offered a tour, you know, that might have lasted 3 months, for instance, in America,
Mhm.
and we turned it down because we had this principle of like not being away for longer than 10 days in
Yeah.
any one stretch,
Mhm.
you know, and so and people thought we were crazy. And in terms of the like, we don't know what that would have done for our career. It was with a band called DC Talk, for instance, you know,
Yeah.
and so
Heard of
it
'em.
would have we would have got in front of a lot of people, and it
Sure.
might have like been the thing that, you know, really like put the band on the map over here. But so it's stuff like that, you know, like if you I guess if you're highly principled and have high ideals, you know, you have to try and stick with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stick with them when it's hard.
Yeah, yeah, and then and also, you know, we didn't really ever have an A&R. We were self kind of A&R'd, and so in that way, like maybe some songs kind of crept through on the records that that perhaps, like we were so headstrong, we would, you know, put stuff on that perhaps if we'd have listened to an A&R person, we might have either worked on it more or
Yeah.
put it by the wayside.
Yeah.
You know, we did have an incredible manager who was involved like that, and he was also a co-owner with us, a guy called Tony Potato,
Yeah.
who runs something called Fuel Music and
Mhm.
Management now here in America. And yeah, he's like one of my greatest friends, still my manager, and yeah, so he was a great person in that environment, but the band were pretty headstrong, so we just did whatever we wanted.
I hear you. And sometimes I think that's why maybe the Delirious audience is so happy with you guys, because there was a lot of surprises. You know, there's a lot of things that you guys did really well, and there's also like surprises every now and then on the album or in parts
Yeah.
of the songs.
Yeah, the something actually, you know, there was no social media at this time. It wasn't like,
What?
I mean, the internet was just the baby thing, you know, and
Yeah.
So it was just Facebook?
no
I'm just
Facebook
kidding.
before Facebook.
It's the 1800s, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
feels like that, doesn't it? But we were doing everything with mail. You know, like
Oh, yeah.
you know, join our mailing list was literally sending your address in to our office. You know, and our database was literally mailing out.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a record coming out. Like, send this card back if you want to pre-order it. You know, it's like,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. So, gosh, that does seem a long time ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't imagine it. Anyway, but what that did was it made the audience like really feel a part of things.
Yeah.
Like we tried to encourage our audience to feel like they owned it, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's how we managed to like get in the charts so much. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, the Radio 1, that's the big radio station a big pop radio station in the UK. You know, they were a little bit skeptical of, and so were the press, to be honest. You know, a little bit skeptical of us in terms of, are you kind of here with this agenda? Are you coming in under the radar to kind of Billy Graham us or something?
Billy Graham us, baby. Come on. Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard Billy Graham used as a verb. But,
Billy Graham.
You did it. It's yours now. I mean, you trademarked it.
Yeah. So, there was a little bit of skepticism, and so, and we, in fact, I'm like rabbit trailing all over the place here.
Oh
but,
no,
I love
great.
it.
There's a record that in the UK was called Audio Lesson Over,
Okay.
and over here it was called Touch.
Those are two very different names. Wait, it
Right.
had two names?
Yeah, it had two names. Yeah, because
This is a Delirious record?
yes, yeah.
Audio
It's
Lesson
Josh-
Over, and then it was called Touch.
It's Josh Scott's favorite record. You
Very-
should actually have a listen to it. It's pretty amazing.
Okay.
Anyway, so Audio Lesson Over was an anagram of Radio 1 Loves Us.
Yeah.
And which of course was like a bit cynical, and but all our fans
Yeah.
and, they loved that, so like they would like make sure that our records charted. They'd all go out and buy it the first
That's
week
amazing.
and stuff like that, just so that it got on the radio. Or
Yeah.
That is
and
amazing.
and in the end, like things things like Q Magazine, what have you, they would review our stuff and give us great reviews.
Yeah.
And like we won a lot of friends over. We did a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. And so
I'm
yeah.
looking up when this album was. What year? Let's see.
it would have been like 2002, 2003, something like that.
Okay, let's see. Hey, side note, I know you've got the question mark at the end of the was there ever a time where the question mark was the S? So it was like Deliria and then it had the question mark? Or is that in my brain?
I think that I don't remember that. I'll tell you what there was though. Was we changed the S for a 5. So
That's what I'm remembering.
yeah, Delirio 5.
Yeah.
Delirio 5.
Audio Lesson Over. Touch. There it is. Right after
Yeah.
Metamorphosis. Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Man, you guys are so cool.
that is a good record. Like it went over a lot of people's heads, that record. But
Yeah.
you listen to it now, it's unbelievable. But
Love it.
yeah, so yeah, we had a lot of fun, and perhaps there are another thing about being completely independent is
Yeah.
that you're responsible for your own money, right?
Right.
So if something's a success, it's good. If it's not, you've just lost a bunch of money. So so that's another thing that can be a con in terms of you haven't got a label that says, oh, here's 50 grand to make a record.
Yeah.
We've got to find that ourselves.
Yeah.
And
And you could just get on, Kickstarter back then, couldn't you? And just do it that way?
there.
And just post
I
a link
mean-
to your Facebook page. What's the I don't hear any problems
Crazy.
here.
Man.
Yeah. Crazy,
I love it.
Like, I guess we were crowdfunding, but just through snail mail.
Dude, it's
Yeah.
the best. It is
Early Kickstarter.
Yeah, it is literally
Yeah.
the best. Okay, so I've got a question. What I want to do is I want to take just a couple of groups of questions. So, the slowing down of Delirious into what you're doing now, and then I
Yeah.
want to kind of backtrack into you starting guitar early on, and kind of what that was like before you were a professional musician.
Yeah.
And then where you're headed. So that's a very scattered map, but don't worry, I will keep us on track.
Great.
And so, how does a band decide to wind down? Like what is that like, and what are the conversations like, and where does everybody end up? That kind of stuff. What happens there?
Yeah. So I mean, all I know about is our situation. So we were in Texas playing a show, and Martin got us together and said, "Hey guys, I've kind of decided that I want to leave the band, you know.
Which is a big, yeah.
Yeah, and like he had 5 or 6 children at this point, and it was like I've just got to slow down, and so, I mean, that was kind of it. But there obviously were lots of discussions and stuff like that. And do we carry on, find a new, you know, lead singer? And that kind of went away pretty quick because like we were so tight together, you know.
Sure.
And but yeah, it's like, what do you do? So for me personally,
what year was this?
Well, he came to us in 2008 and said that.
Okay. And where in Texas? That's the other question.
I can't remember.
Oh,
I just remember sitting outside in the field, and it was like like we were playing something like a YMCA or a sports hall or something, and we were outside on the field.
Dig it. All right.
Yeah. So we spent, but you know, like I said, we had 3 companies, and like personally, like for Delirious and Furious Records, we had, including us, we had 13 staff, you know. So it's like you can't take a semi, you know, truck that's going down the highway at 70 miles an hour. You can't just take the keys out and let it,
right.
You know, it has to like take some time to stop, right?
Yeah.
So so we actually kind of went on for another year, and we're planning on how to, like, what do we do with this? Like, we would our distribution company was distributing artists from America into, you know, 95 territories around the world.
Wow.
Because pretty early on, we kind of figured that America was kind of its own thing. You know, it's so big, and you know, you never have to leave America if you don't want to. You know, in terms of you can tour all year. You know, 6 months just in Texas if you want, you know.
In places we don't even remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So we were helping people kind of get their music out into the rest of the world. And
what were some of those what were some of those bands that you were distributing, helping grow? You remember?
Gosh, I mean, I want to say we might have even done stuff with like Switchfoot and you know, Kevin Max, Toby. I can't really remember.
Cool, great. All right, so the bus is going 70 miles an hour. You can't just pull the keys out, you know.
Yeah, and so like we kind of did it over a year. Also, a good thing about that was that we had to figure out what we were doing. You know, we had a situation where, as a band, we were paying ourselves a salary. We didn't like take our royalties, if you like, from writing songs. Like everything that was offered Delirious Master went back into the company, and we paid salaries, and that was how we were able to, you know, have a staff, and how we were able to go for so long, you know.
Yeah.
So, but after 17 years, it's like, well, what am I going to do, you know? And so for me personally, you know, I knew that I didn't really want to hang my guitar up, you know, and go back to being an electrician, which is what I was when I first left school.
Oh.
So every time we came to America, over 2008 and through 2009, our last concert was November of 2009.
Okay.
And every time we came here, I like would stay out for a few more days and you know, reconnect with people that I'd met over the years in the business, other artists, and you know, ended up doing some writing or some playing, and little by little, you know, most of my work started to come from America, and to the point where I actually brought my family over one Easter, my wife and 2 girls, Easter of 2010, with the intention of like, oh, do we find an apartment or something? You know, do we buy a flat or rent a flat in Nashville? Because every time I come, I might come for a couple of weeks, but I'm relying on people's kindness and their couches or their spare rooms, and that was actually a really sweet time, and a lot came out of that for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, we thought, do we, have a little bit of a base here? And so our intention was to find some place to rent, and while we were here on that Easter, the Icelandic volcano erupted.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That spewed all that stuff into the atmosphere, and it shut down all transatlantic flights. And so we ended up being here for an extra week, and in that time, we bought our first house here.
Wow.
And what year was that?
That was 2010.
Okay, gotcha. 2010.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, so you bought a house in Nashville in 2010.
Yeah, we ended up buying a house. Yeah.
So you must have felt some kind of like security in work coming towards you to put your roots down. Like, who were you working with? What was kind of the new wave that allowed you to do that?
So a major part of that was meeting a songwriter here in town called Jason Ingram, and Paul Mabry, drummer extraordinaire and producer extraordinaire. So so this was 2010. I actually probably met them before that, but Jason introduced me to Holly Zabka, who's a publisher with Essential here in actually in Franklin, and so they offered me a publishing deal. I ended up going with that, and then Jason and Paul and we started something called One Sonic Society, and that was a music project, the three of us, and so that was really like that hub was like something that was really solid, and I was getting a lot of work through that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But the songwriting thing, you asked earlier, like what songwriting looked like. So for in Delirious, and so Martin and I, we predominantly wrote the songs, and we'd be gathering our ideas all year long, writing little bits and pieces, but like we would wait to get to the end of the year most of the time, in sort of like November, December, and we'd get together and pull all our pieces together and end up writing a bunch of songs, and then January, February we'd start to kind of share them with the other guys, and then record, and that was like our rhythm. But moving here to Nashville and getting a publishing deal where you might have 2 sessions a day in a room somewhere, and you get in there at 10 and you leave at 2, then you go to your next one, and I remember the very first week I was so excited about it, and the very first week I ever did that, I had like a whole week of writing like that, 2 sessions a day. And I got to Wednesday and I was completely burnt out. Because the way I hadn't had that discipline before. It just like we'd write when the inspiration struck, and we'd have a deadline. We'd know that we needed to write for a record, but it's like, we only needed 15 songs to choose 10 or 12 from, whereas when you're writing for a living, so there was a lot to learn, and it was a definitely like in at the deep end, steep learning circle,
That's amazing. Yeah. And then right now, what's the bulk of your time going into? Is it songwriting, helping people songwrite, or are you touring with artists? Are you in the studio, like 80-20, 30-70, 50-50?
Yeah.
What are we talking here?
Yeah. So over the years, different things have come along. I started to work with Michael W. Smith straight away, actually, so I'm a part of his touring band now. We had a very busy first half of this year, actually, and I love doing that. So like I tour with Michael W.
Yeah.
Smith.
Are you breaking your 10-day rule with Michael?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do break that a little bit
All right.
sometimes.
Yeah. I guess the kids are older
Yeah.
now. You know.
33,
Yeah, that's right.
29.
Yeah,
They're
it's a
about
bit
to
different
30s,
now.
yeah.
And what the most amazing thing about that is that we no, there's lots of amazing things. The most amazing thing is that I'm still touring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still feel, because I didn't there was no guarantees that I would ever experience that kind of thing again, getting on a tour bus or getting on a plane. And I think the other guys just can't understand why I'm so excited when I get to an airport or when I get on a bus. It's like, but I feel like there was no guarantees that this would continue, and I absolutely love it. Like I really love it. So, I get to tour with other people too. Earlier this year, one of the highlights of the last couple of years was I got to tour with Cody Carnes and Carrie Job and Martin. So Martin from Delirious.
Awesome.
Like we got to do 10 dates together, and it was a real blast. It was really fantastic. So I would say touring is half the year, and then or half my income for the year. Maybe is a better way of putting that. And then I would say writing is like maybe 30% of the rest of my time. And then maybe 25, and then 25 is doing sessions.
Sure.
So I have this amazing studio here. We moved to a house with a basement, which is what I'm sitting in now.
Yeah.
And I have an incredible amp room just next door that's totally isolated from the rest of the house. So all my amps are in there, and
Oh man.
so I do that. And then, as a player, I had a little bit of what do you say it? A little bit
recognition?
of weight,
A name for yourself.
influence maybe, right?
Influence.
Yeah, from Delirious, and so I've been able to, made the kilt pedal with Josh at JHS.
Well, I was going to bring that up about how that's probably most of your income is kilt royalties.
I wish. Yeah. So, then, I've got some amazing amps, right? So, that I brought over from the UK.
Yeah.
And there's a company called Tone Junkie HW. So we've made Kemper presets and IRs, impulse responses, and stuff for Helix and all that kind of stuff. And using my my cabinets and things like that. I've just doing entering a new arrangement with Two Notes Audio and Rev amps. Their thing is a little bit different with this dynamic cabinet thing, virtual cabinets, and which is unbelievable. And so, we've just shot a load of my cabinets at Blackbird Studios in Nashville, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I have to show you this, and I got it right beside my chair. So
Bring it. What is it?
But it's this.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that right there.
Right. So the ACS one and the Canvas DI, I absolutely love this.
Oh, good.
Really love it. So it goes in a little pedal train case, and I carry it on. I take this everywhere we go.
Oh,
That's amazing.
And, because if, backline, when you're not using your own stuff, and even when you are, you're not guaranteed that something's not going to go wrong, right? So this is always there, lives on top of my rack or whatever, and it's just a super fast, plug-in situation if something goes. And I've got my own IRs for this.
Fun.
I have
send them to me.
So I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ABC. So A is my I want to say that A is I can't even remember now, but my Benson Monarch,
Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
and I have
Dude.
so
Great idea.
what I love about this unit is that you can have different IR on each side,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so so I have my Monarch US and Monarch UK on different sides, and then I have my
There you
Park.
go. We are just talking the same language. This is really great. Keep going. I love this.
Then my Park, which is my favorite amp of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was it's like a Marshall. It's got a solid state rectifier. It's 50-watt combo.
Big
but
boy.
It's just old, and
Yeah.
it's like one of the best cabinets I've got.
Yeah.
Got 70s blackbacks in there. Anyway, so that is in the London
Yeah.
setting, and I have again. There's like Brighton normal channel. So again,
Yeah.
I've got the IR on one side, and they're different IRs, and then my 62 AC30 is in the Dartford,
No big. Very cool.
and that and again I've got bright channel and normal channel. So
Yeah.
I don't normally back in the Delirious day I would have like a Marshall and Vox style. So like
Yeah.
my Park is actually
You
really
playing
quite Voxy.
stereo with Delirious, back in the day?
Yeah, in fact,
Okay.
I would have 2 microphones on each cabinet, on each mono cabinet. So like, it would be more of a, like it started out as a blend,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and then once I got into once I got the DL4 back in the day when it first came out,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Changed the game.
using a stereo delay was
Yeah.
like, oh wow, that actually sounds really good. So
Yeah.
so it's stereo when there's a stereo effect,
Yeah.
but it's a blend
Yeah.
when not. And so we wouldn't pan each amp left and right. They would both be left and right,
Wow.
with 2 microphones on each cab.
Big.
And,
Sounds
but it
big.
would just get bigger. It
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
just get
So
bigger.
I
You
feel
know, with
the
Delirious-
bigness
Yeah.
of that whole setup.
So anyway, all that to say, I love this setup. Also, I can use that with my pedal board if we're doing an orchestra show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of it's an easier solution than taking my Kemper rack, which sounds amazing, but
Sure. It should.
this is so much easier to carry around.
Yeah.
And then if I can say one more thing about the ACS1,
Oh yeah, go for
which
it.
I absolutely love.
Please have the floor.
yeah, is that I love how it takes effects in the front. So I've always I'm a little bit like the Edge in this respect, where I don't use effects loops or anything in at the amps.
Yeah.
I everything's in the front. I love the way that
Yeah.
delays, especially sound in going in the front.
Me too.
So, but on a lot of modeling, Kemper and Helix alike, if you've got more gain from the model,
Uh-huh.
it makes the reverbs and delays really bloom, and kind of it can really overpower
Mhm.
the sound, and you're always like, oh, I've got to dial that back or whatever. Anyway, the ACS1 takes delays and reverbs in the front really well
Oh.
for my ears,
Well, great. Hey,
and
that's
I love-
encouraging to hear, because that's how I have it set up. Also,
Yeah.
So I am like a C level guitar player.
I've seen your videos. I
so-
would say you're like a bit higher than
Oh,
C.
okay. Keep going. I need to hear. No, but I feel like running all the wet effects, like post amp or effects loop. For me, it's a little bit less forgiveness. And I kind of like running it straight all into the amp. I feel like it feels a little bit more organic. It's a little bit more emotional, and it is just in general, like it is a little bit more forgiving at the same time.
Yeah.
So I do, like I can hide just 3% more, than I could if it was running the other way. Okay, and then are you running the kilt? Are you running the kilt through that? Is kilt like always on, or how did?
No, it's not always on.
Not always on, but like, is it always on the board? I mean.
Oh yes.
Oh, you gotta have it.
Yeah,
it's it's a great pedal. I love mine.
Thank you.
Personally.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the kilt. So that came from I used to use the Expandora pedals.
Yeah.
With Delirious, I had 4 in total, but like 2 would be on my board, and I'd have like one set for like overdrive stroke distortion, and then the other in that sort of fuzz mode.
Yeah.
And so, and that's how I use it now. So the version 2 kilt has
There's 2 switches. Is that what it has? Or does it have?
It has 2 gain switches.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, and so gain, if they're both kind of down and off, that's like a crunch type sound. And then if gain 1 is on, that is like overdrive distortion.
Yeah.
If gain 2 is on its own, it's like high gain.
Mm-hmm.
And then if gain 1 and gain 2 are on, it kind of it was always called the forbidden mode because it was never spoken about on their instructions. Because I think they just thought that people wouldn't like it, but it's fuzz, basically. It's like a spitty fuzz.
Oh, you betcha it is.
And so that, it's a really cool pedal. So version 2, I have the I have gain 1, so it's like it's almost like a lead mode, or if I'm doing a song like Smitty's song Secret Ambition, it's like the sort of drive that is the the kind of distorted drive sound. But then the red remote will turn on the gain 2 as well, and so it turns it into a fuzz. And so I think it's a really versatile pedal.
Yeah, well, I do too. It's an industry favorite. It's kind of a secret weapon, whenever you can design one of those secret weapons, you're in good spot. I just really hate when Josh has a good idea. It just eats me alive.
I'll tell you what,
so great.
I really enjoyed I enjoy the Iron Horse.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
it does a similar thing for me.
Yeah.
In terms of that sort of more. So, I think that us guitar players get a little bit tripped over on the transparent overdrive thing.
Don't get me started.
What do you say?
I said, don't get me started. But yeah.
No, it's like, why? If I want, this is just my opinion. If I turn on a pedal, I want to hear it. I want to hear it make a sound. I want to hear it change the tone.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily. I mean, I think what people are meaning by that is that they don't want any of the clarity to go away, or they don't want the high end to disappear,
like the spank of the guitar.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So I understand what that means, but also it doesn't stop me using my full drive 2, which kind of changes the tone of the guitar.
It does.
Or the kilt on or the Iron Horse. It's like it's a distortion pedal. Like
right.
I literally want it to do something that is that makes it sound different.
Totally.
So anyway, that's a little beef.
No, I think it's really helpful, and we get a lot of those comments and things like that, and I just like, hey, I just want to be like, hey, just play guitar, like just quit worrying about it and practice and get better and write better songs, quit worrying.
Right.
I think, and I get burned out on this just being in the gear industry sometimes. I think when people, unless I do have a passion for great tone, right? Great tone is super important, but great tone is a hallway to get to a better place. Great tone is not the final room that we're trying to get to. Tone is it's a paintbrush. It's not the painting. And so I get frustrated with conversations with, maybe with customers or partners and things like that, where people do treat the gear as the goal, and in reality, it's like, dude, like gear's not the goal. Tone is not the goal. The song is the goal, and the song isn't even the goal. The moment is the goal. The moment that the song creates is the goal. And even the song itself, a lot of time, is the vessel on where we're trying to go. And so tone's just a stair step, man. And if tone's the goal, like, you've lost the war, Yeah. But you do have to spend. It is important, because if the way you got there is really lazy and not great, no one's gonna want to listen to your moment.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that moment is where connection happens.
Yeah.
It's where the listener is connected to you as a writer or a singer or whatever you are at that moment. That's a good way of putting it. The moment. I like that.
I like that. It's a paintbrush.
Yeah. Because sometimes you hear amazing sounds. Like I can remember, like, I could list out like 10 albums where like my sound life changed, and then like one of those is when I heard Blake Mills' Hi Ho record. Like my sound life changed with that record in a new way. But then I buy a lot of that stuff, and then like I'm not creating that moment. Just because I have the tools doesn't mean I am now creating that moment. You got to have the song, you got to have the part, and then the moment comes from those kind of things.
Yes,
that's good.
Which comes from practice and creativity. Yeah. That's the most important thing. So,
I've got a moment story then that goes back to like how I started playing guitar.
Yeah.
So as a teenager or early teenager, I wanted to be a drummer, and had a drum set, and my parents had paid for me to get some lessons and stuff like that. And then I started work when I was 16. I left high school and started an apprenticeship to become an electrician. And I couldn't believe that I was like getting £28 a week or whatever it was when I started.
Man. And it's raining. It is raining.
I know. And so every week, like, my favorite band in the world, the band that made me fall in love with music, was Queen. And so I only had tapes and like mixtapes of that people would make me of their records. And so what I did the first 3 weeks of me earning any money was I went to the record store, and I'd buy 3 Queen albums a week until I got their whole up to that point got their collection, and they had nine records, so it was like 3 whatever.
Yeah,
so
there's
anyway.
an end to the goal. It's good.
Yeah. So I went in one day after this, and the guy in the record store, it was called Parrot Records, and it's in Ipswich, and he said to me, "Hey, Queen have got a new record out. Do you want to listen to it?" So I said, "Yeah." And so I put the headphones on, put the LP on the record player, and it was Queen Live Killers.
Okay.
And the opening track is like is a fast rock and roll version of "We Will Rock You," right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard it, it was like, I want to be Brian May. Like, I don't just want to like get this record. I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went home, talked to my parents. We ended up selling our drum kit that I had, and my dad took me to this store called Whitmore's Music up on it's called Norwich Road in Ipswich.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. We bought a copy of a Gibson Melody Maker. I mean, I didn't know what it was.
Sure.
And
what color was it? That was probably what was most important.
it was sunburst. It was like
that's great. Yeah.
black, like black on the outside.
Yeah.
Red and yellow. Red to yellow to black or whatever it was. And a little 5-watt practice amp, which, interestingly enough, was made by a company called JHS.
How about that?
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
And distributed by Rose Morris in the UK.
Yeah.
So I had that, and I figured out that I could get that Brian May tone, or I was also into Boston at the time. I could
Appropriate.
get that sort of Brian May stroke Tom Schultz type
Yeah.
tone if I turned every knob on full on the amp,
Yeah.
put it upside down or face down on my bed, and put the duvet over the top, so it wasn't too loud, but it kind of distorted. So,
That's amazing.
yeah. So anyway, that's it. So that moment, from then on, like the very first song I learned to play on the guitar was "I'm in Love with My Car" by Queen.
Yeah.
And then my parents got me lessons
Yeah.
with a local tutor, and I did that for about 18 months.
Yeah.
And like, he kind of sacked me. He fired me after 18 months because
Yeah.
he was teaching me classical guitar, a classical piece, and I was supposed to be reading it. He was teaching me how to read music, but he would play it as an example, and then I'd go home and remember it and like practice and practice and practice, not read.
Yeah.
And so he, like, one day we sat down. I'll never forget it. It was the song. It was Cavatina, and it's a piece from the Deer Hunter, the theme for the Deer Hunter film. And he was turning the pages in the wrong place, and I was just playing it perfectly.
He was testing.
Yeah.
What a
He
guy.
was testing me, and then he fired me. He said, "I don't think I can teach you anymore."
Oh man.
What an Ipswich way to fire somebody. I don't think I can teach you anymore.
Yeah. So,
Did you learn
that
to
was
read
that.
music after that, or?
But that, no. I wish I'd stuck with it, honestly.
Don't we all? Yeah. I mean,
But later on, I did go to the Guitar Institute in London. That was started by a guy who was a roommate of Frank Gambale in whatever MIT or whatever they had, or Guitar Institute in Los Angeles. Anyway, but to your point, that moment of hearing Brian May play guitar was the thing that made me want to play. And so I was a late starter in some respects. You know, I was 16 years old, and that was it. I was in love. The next time I had one of those moments was the first time I heard The Bends by Radiohead.
yeah.
And,
Bends.
And it completely stopped me in my tracks and kind of made me change direction.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
What is it? Planet Telex. It's the opening track on that album. It's just, I mean, the delay and the tremolo and just like, and the drums clipping. It's just like,
Yeah.
you know, it is such a powerful track that, I mean, if anybody who's listened to it has been changed forever, and if you haven't been changed, you just haven't listened to it. That's the thing. It takes no prisoners, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a brilliant record.
Everything on the floor. And I love that you said Queen. I feel like Queen gets caught up a little bit kind of in the pop icon, you know, brand, kind of like in the, I'm going to be mean sort of, but kind of like in these bands like Kiss and AC/DC that aren't just bands anymore, they're brands.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like a lot gets missed specifically with Queen because there is some significant innovation happening on a lot of those records. There's no wasted space. Freddie Mercury is by far like the best rock vocalist of all time.
Yeah, greatest frontman.
And I feel like, you know, it kind of gets, you know, we are the champion out and we will rock you, and it's kind of like there's some really influential stuff that you could write a whole college degree, a master class on, and stuff that wasn't ever on the radio, you know?
Right.
So, which I'm glad you're smart and you understand that. So, makes it really great. So, welcome.
I don't have a dissertation on it, but
can you get one?
Was Queen one of the bands that wasn't cool to like in their heyday?
I don't think
no,
so.
I mean, I would say that that they were very popular, but I mean, every band has their story of like, it taken so long to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might love a band's first and second album, but when you then read years later, they didn't actually have a hit until, their fourth record or whatever it is. It's like it's a slog, isn't it? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, hey, thank you for being on the podcast today. I
Oh,
really
it's great.
appreciate it. This was we got to some really some sweet spaces, and
We did.
Right.
I'm glad for
Well,
it. So
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
yeah,
And
if
thanks
you-
for making such great stuff.
it's all for you, bud. It's all for you. If you want to support and follow Stu G, you can go to Tone Junkie, buy his stuff. You can go to JHS and buy a kilt. You can go to, you can see him on tour with Michael W. Smith. You can buy old Delirious records. You can do a lot of things. So, did I miss anything? Probably a lot.
No, it's great.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for being on the show today, man.
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate you.
I really appreciate it too. Thank you.